Breaking news. The woman who built her career calling herself the guardian of justice is now accused of betraying the very law she swore to uphold. New York Attorney General Letitia James, once praised for taking down corporate giants and targeting Donald Trump with fraud cases, now stands accused of committing mortgage fraud, lying about her residency, and abusing the law for her own gain. Tonight, America sees not the crusader she pretended to be, but a politician caught in the same corruption she claimed to fight. Federal investigators have uncovered evidence that James misrepresented her primary residence in order to secure a favorable mortgage deal. Court documents suggest she claimed tax benefits in New York while simultaneously declaring residency in Virginia, a move that allowed her to reap thousands of dollars in improper financial advantages. These are not clerical errors. They are calculated decisions, the kind she once prosecuted others for. The scandal is a gut punch to millions of Americans, particularly seniors who worked hard, paid their mortgages honestly, and expected leaders to live by the same rules. While families struggled to pay their bills, the top law enforcement officer of New York allegedly manipulated the system for personal gain. "This is not justice," Jasmine Crockett declared in front of flashing cameras. "This is hypocrisy in its purest form. She prosecuted others for fraud while she was committing it herself." The timing is explosive. Just months ago, Letitia James celebrated courtroom victories against Trump, painting herself as the fearless warrior of truth. But now, the tables have turned. Her enemies point to this scandal as proof she never fought for justice at all. She fought for power. Jasmine Crockett wasted no time drawing the contrast. She weaponized the law against her opponents while hiding her own crimes. That is not leadership. That is betrayal. Across the nation, the reaction is fury. Veterans of past legal battles shake their heads at the irony. Citizens who once admired her boldness now feel deceived. The woman who promised fairness is now accused of lying under oath. And Jasmine Crockett, relentless and unflinching, has stepped forward to deliver the message no one else dares to say. Letitia James is not the guardian of justice. She is its greatest fraud. The details of the scandal are as damning as they are hypocritical. Investigators traced Letitia James's real estate filings and found a pattern of deception designed to enrich herself while hiding behind her office. According to mortgage records, James listed one property in New York as her primary residence, a declaration that granted her access to exclusive state-level benefits. At the same time, she filed tax paperwork in Virginia, claiming residency there to secure a second set of advantages. In simple terms, she was playing both sides, telling each state a different story to maximize her personal profit. This isn't a clerical mix-up. It's a deliberate scheme. Emails obtained from lenders show James certifying her residency under penalty of perjury, signing documents that investigators now say were outright lies. Experts reviewing the paperwork call it classic mortgage fraud, the same kind of white-collar crime her office once boasted about prosecuting. The irony is almost unbearable. The state's top attorney, the woman who presented herself as the moral compass of New York, allegedly cut corners to pocket thousands in illegal benefits. The public outrage is amplified by James's history. Just last year, she stood on courthouse steps, declaring victory against Donald Trump and branding him a fraud who manipulated property values for gain. Now, her critics are asking the obvious. How can a woman who built her career prosecuting financial lies be guilty of the same crime? Jasmine Crockett put it bluntly. She called others liars while lying herself. She screamed about fraud while forging her own paperwork. That's not justice. That's theater. For many Americans, the hypocrisy cuts deeper than the fraud itself. Seniors who sacrificed to pay their mortgages on time see James's actions as a slap in the face. Families who lost homes in the 2008 crash watch in disgust as a powerful official allegedly gamed the same system that crushed them. "We lost everything while she was cheating the rules," one victim told reporters. "If this is what the law looks like, then the law is broken." Letitia James, once hailed as the fearless warrior who took on Trump, now finds her own name tied to the very corruption she claimed to fight. And Jasmine Crockett, armed with evidence and fire, is ready to remind America that the mask has slipped. The backlash was immediate and ferocious. Across New York, anger boiled over as citizens digested the revelations. Outside the Attorney General's office in Manhattan, protesters gathered with signs reading, "One law for us, another for her," and "Justice is not for sale." Veterans, retirees, and working families stood side by side, furious that the woman who promised fairness had allegedly cheated the system herself. For many, it was not just about the money, it was about the betrayal of trust. Talk radio lit up, with callers recounting their own struggles. Seniors spoke of losing homes after the 2008 housing collapse, of working double shifts just to keep up with mortgage payments. Now, learning that their state's top attorney allegedly lied on mortgage applications to line her pockets, they felt sick with disgust. "She prosecuted people like me for making mistakes on paperwork," one caller said bitterly. "But she does it and calls herself a hero." Letitia James, cornered and enraged, staged her own press conference. Cameras captured her storming to the podium, her tone combative, her words dripping with fury. "This is a politically motivated smear," she shouted. "I have dedicated my career to protecting the people of New York, and I will not be taken down by lies." She claimed her paperwork was misunderstood, blamed clerical errors, and accused Jasmine Crockett of waging a witch hunt. But the images told a different story. Side by side on television screens across America, viewers saw Jasmine calmly laying out documents, signatures, and proof, while James ranted and shouted. The contrast was striking. Jasmine looked steady, factual, and unshaken. James looked desperate. Social media turned her press conference into a firestorm. Clips of her shouting, "This is all lies," were spliced with headlines showing her signed mortgage forms. Memes spread like wildfire. One showed her holding scales of justice weighed down with stacks of cash. Another mocked her slogan, "Fighting for fairness," with the caption, "Fair only when it benefits her." Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett seized the moment. In a measured but fiery statement, she declared, "Letitia James has weaponized the law for her own ambition. She punished others for fraud while committing it herself. This is not justice. This is hypocrisy at the highest level, and the people will not forgive it." The battle lines were drawn. On one side, a once-praised Attorney General shouting into the storm. On the other, Jasmine Crockett, calm, relentless, and armed with truth. The nation was watching closely, and with every word, Letitia James seemed to be losing the fight. As the investigation pressed forward, cracks began to appear inside Letitia James's own circle. Allies who once defended her unconditionally now whispered doubts behind closed doors. Staffers quietly resigned, citing personal reasons, but insiders told reporters the truth. No one wanted to go down with her. The real bombshell came when internal memos from her office leaked to the press. One document, dated last year, revealed that senior aides flagged inconsistencies in James's residency claims and warned her directly. These filings may expose you to fraud liability. According to the memo, she brushed off the warnings, instructing staff to handle it quietly. That phrase, now splashed across headlines, became a symbol of her arrogance. Worse still, prosecutors revealed email exchanges between James and her mortgage broker. In one message, the broker asked, "Are you sure you can legally claim primary residence in both states?" James allegedly replied, "Leave the legality to me. Just get it approved." Those 7 words hit like a hammer. Leave the legality to me, the very top law enforcement officer dismissing the law as if it were a personal tool. The fallout was immediate. Civil rights leaders who once celebrated her victories now demanded answers. Editorial boards that endorsed her campaigns published scathing rebukes. Even members of her own political party distanced themselves, calling the allegations deeply troubling and a betrayal of the public trust. One former supporter bluntly told reporters, "She built her career calling out corruption. Now she is the corruption." Meanwhile, protests in New York swelled. Crowds flooded the streets around her office, chanting, "Resign, resign." Veterans carried signs that read, "Lied under oath," and "Fraud General, not Attorney General." The anger was no longer confined to political opponents. It was everywhere. Ordinary New Yorkers who once admired her saw her now as the very thing she promised to fight. Letitia James tried to rally her shrinking base. In a televised interview, she claimed the accusations were driven by Donald Trump loyalists seeking revenge for her lawsuits. But the defense rang hollow. Americans remembered she had sworn an oath to uphold the law, not twist it for personal convenience. Through it all, Jasmine Crockett's voice rang steady and uncompromising. Standing before a sea of cameras, she declared, "The truth is simple. Letitia James lied. She deceived the system for money, then lied again to cover it up. The people of New York deserve justice, not a fraud in a robe." The scandal reached a breaking point when prosecutors unveiled what they called the smoking gun. For weeks, Letitia James insisted the accusations were exaggerated, the paperwork misunderstood, the entire case politically motivated. But now, investigators produced a certified mortgage application, bearing her full name, her personal signature, and sworn statements made under penalty of perjury, that proved she had lied. The document was shocking in its simplicity. Filed in Virginia, James claimed the property there was her primary residence, securing a reduced interest rate and thousands in tax breaks. But on the very same day, records in New York showed her filing an affidavit swearing she lived in Brooklyn as her primary address, a claim that entitled her to separate state-level benefits. 2 contradictory filings, both signed, both stamped, both carrying the weight of perjury. Experts called it open and shut fraud. Mortgage analysts testified that no honest mistake could explain the duplicate filings. One former federal prosecutor said bluntly, "If this were anyone else, they would already be indicted." The public reaction was swift and brutal. News outlets plastered the side-by-side documents across screens, showing Americans the undeniable proof. Talk shows replayed Jasmine Crockett's words. She lied under oath while accusing others of lying, as the images of James's signature burned into the national consciousness. Even her allies abandoned her. A prominent New York lawmaker who once defended James told reporters, "The evidence is clear. She has disgraced her office and herself." Civil rights groups distanced themselves, careful not to be dragged into the maelstrom. The once proud reputation of New York's Attorney General collapsed in real time. At a hastily called press conference, Letitia James tried to spin the revelation, claiming, "I never intended to mislead. This is a clerical issue, not a crime." But the excuse only fueled the outrage. Commentators mocked her explanation, saying, "You don't accidentally file two different sworn statements in two different states." Jasmine Crockett seized the moment, holding up copies of both filings during a live broadcast. "This is not a smear. This is not rumor. This is fraud, signed in her own hand. She weaponized the law against her enemies, all while breaking it herself. If this is our standard of justice, then justice is dead." The images spread like wildfire. For millions of Americans, the scandal was no longer a debate. It was a verdict. With the smoking gun exposed, the walls around Letitia James crumbled. What had once been dismissed as political noise now stood as undeniable proof of fraud. Across New York, the outrage reached a fever pitch. Protesters filled the streets of Manhattan, chanting, "Fraud General, resign now." Veterans, retirees, and working families marched side by side, waving signs that read, "One law for all," and "She lied, she stole, she must go." City Hall became a fortress, surrounded by angry crowds demanding her removal. Vigils were held outside courthouses, with candles lit in honor of the values James had betrayed. Churches rang their bells each evening, a somber reminder that the top legal officer of New York had allegedly turned the law into her personal scam. The political fallout was devastating. Key Democratic leaders, once her strongest supporters, began to abandon her. A prominent senator stated bluntly, "If Letitia James cannot live under the law, she cannot lead under the law." Civil rights organizations, previously her allies, released statements condemning her actions. Even her own staff turned against her. Whistleblowers emerged, confirming that internal warnings about her false filings had been deliberately ignored. National media pounced. Editorial boards branded her the symbol of hypocrisy in American justice. Late-night hosts mocked her as the fraud general, playing clips of her fiery press conferences alongside the mortgage documents she signed. On social media, hashtags like #FraudGeneral and #JusticeForSale trended nationwide. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett rose as the clear voice of accountability. In a televised rally, she declared, "This is bigger than Letitia James. This is about every American who ever trusted the law to protect them. If the highest officer of justice lies under oath, then the very foundation of democracy is at risk, and I will not allow that to stand." Her words electrified the crowd, transforming protests into a movement. Cornered, James lashed out. In a combative interview, she accused Crockett of being a puppet for her enemies, screaming that she was the victim of a political witch hunt. But to the public, it sounded desperate. Her shouting contrasted with Jasmine's steady, unflinching resolve. The nation saw one woman unraveling and another rising. For the first time in her career, Letitia James looked truly isolated. Allies gone, credibility shattered, surrounded by angry citizens demanding her resignation, she was no longer the hunter of frauds, she was the fraud. And Jasmine Crockett stood ready to deliver the final word. The nation held its breath as Jasmine Crockett stepped to the podium, the evidence of Letitia James's hypocrisy now etched into history. The mortgage filings, the false residency claims, the lies under oath, every piece of the puzzle was now public. For weeks, Americans had watched in shock as the Attorney General, who promised fairness, became the embodiment of fraud. And now, they waited for Jasmine's final word. Her tone was calm, but her words thundered. Letitia James built her career, calling others frauds. She stood on courthouse steps, pointing fingers at leaders and declaring herself the guardian of truth. But tonight, the evidence shows she was never guarding justice. She was robbing it. She lied to the courts, she lied to the people, and she lied under oath. She paused, letting the silence pierce through television screens across the country. Then she continued, her voice sharper. This is not about Trump. This is not about politics. This is about the law. And when the top law officer breaks the law, every citizen suffers. Because if she can lie and get away with it, then why should anyone follow the rules? The words resonated deeply, especially among older Americans who had spent their lives believing in the system. To them, this was not just another scandal, it was proof that the very institutions they trusted were being corrupted from within. Jasmine gave them back their voice. I say this clearly. No one is above the law, not presidents, not mayors, and not attorneys general. Letitia James betrayed the oath she swore, and for that betrayal she must answer. This is not vengeance. This is justice. The crowd erupted in chants of justice, justice, echoing through the streets of Manhattan. Across America, living rooms lit up with applause, veterans saluted their screens, and ordinary citizens nodded in agreement. The fight was no longer about one woman's corruption. It was about restoring faith in the law itself. Jasmine's closing words hit like a hammer. This fight is not over. It is only beginning. If you believe in truth, if you believe in democracy, if you believe that justice still matters in America, stand with me. Because together, we will not let corruption win. Together, we will bring the law back to the people. With that, she stepped away from the podium. The flash of cameras captured the moment that defined the scandal. Letitia James, exposed as a fraud, and Jasmine Crockett, rising as the voice of a nation demanding justice.